At least have some evidence that you failed.
Resilience can be learned. And not only resilience, because the other part or aspect of resilience is hope. Hope. Because what makes you resilient is the hope for something better.
Thy Kingdom Come, 14 days of hope to the church and nation, 19th April to 2nd May 2021. Online every weekday between 4 to 6 p.m. on Elevate TV and Life Church International's Facebook and YouTube pages. Hosted by Apostle David Juma and Pastor Asunta Juma. Bringing together a battery of men and women of God with a word and prayer for you. Stay tuned.
Elevate TV, advancing kingdom lifestyle.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you so much for tuning in once again this wonderful Saturday morning to Elevate TV, where we are advancing kingdom lifestyle. This is Nextgen Warriors, and as is always, I am your presenter and host, Collins Otaz. So, ladies and gentlemen, there are those things that you go through in life. There are issues that affect you. But before I even get into the issues, I want to read us something. At 5 years old, his father died. At 16, he quit studying. By the age of 17, he had already lost more than 4 jobs. At 18, he got married. Between ages 18 and 22, he worked as a driver and he failed at it. He later joined the army and was later rejected. He tried to enter the judicial school and was rejected as well. He became a failure as an insurance salesman. At age 25, his wife left him and took with her his only daughter. He turned his dishes into a small coffee shop, but even that failed. At 65, he retired. On the first day of his retirement, the government gave him $105. Realizing that he couldn't keep himself thinking about killing himself because he had a life full of failures, he sat under a tree to write his testament. But he realized there was something he hadn't done yet, and that was cooking. Yes, cooking. You heard me right. He hadn't done cooking. So with dollars that the government gave him, he bought himself a fryer. He made some fried chicken using a recipe that his grandmother had taught him some times back. He sold this chicken from door to door. Ladies and gentlemen, at age 88, Colonel Sanders, the founder of KFC, is and was a billionaire. Now, that is not a script. That is the reality of someone's life. He went through all the failures in life, but was resilient enough to come out strong, even at an advanced age. you're just 18, 17, perhaps even 12, or 25. You have failed maybe once or twice. You're about to give up. Well, there's something called resilience. And so today we'll be talking about resilience. And of course, I cannot tackle the topic alone. So I have a guest in studio. She is a very, very endowed personality in regards to matters resilience. Our approach to this matter is not just about a professional studies or academic qualification. It is a personal thing, so to speak. By the name, she's Elishiba Msengeti Poriot. I know you're wondering, what is that? Which name is that? Elishiba is a Taita come Pokot. So what a mixture. What is Kenya for you? I mean, we need people from different sorts of tribes to contribute to the well-being of this nation. So who's Elishiba Msengeti? Well, she's an educator, a life skills trainer, and a motivational speaker. She is the founder of the Classroom Outside. Perhaps you've heard of it, you've seen it on YouTube or Facebook. She has done so many things, and she's a graduate of Wellesley College from the US, where she graduated with a BA in International Relations and African Studies. She's also a graduate of University of Nairobi, where she did her MA in Women, Leadership and Governance. She's a mother, she's a wife, and above all, she's a life coach. She believes that one has to live a life of gratitude, faith, and hope. So that should tell you she's born again. Welcome on set, Elishiba.
Thank you very much, Collins.
It's been a long time coming.
Yes.
The phone calls, the SMS,
Yeah.
and the WhatsApp and what have you.
Yeah.
Finally, we are here.
Finally, this is the day that God had ordained for this to happen.
Hallelujah.
So it's not by mistake.
I like that statement.
Yeah.
You know, when you start with the statement of faith, it encourages even the
Yeah.
discouraged before we start.
Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Resilience. In your program, the Classroom Outside, the key thing, I normally see the hashtag, resilience. Anything you do, resilience. What does it mean to have resilience, or what is resilience to you?
Okay, so first of all, thank you so much for having me here. And hello to our viewers, and I hope you'll be blessed by our conversation. The very purpose of the Classroom Outside, as you've mentioned, is to teach what we don't learn inside the classroom. And one of those skills, which I call life skills, is resilience. Is how do you recover from the difficulties that come our way? Excuse me. How do we recover from disappointment, grief, loss, all those kinds of things, which inevitably are part of our life? And so I thought about, I mean, I've been an educator and have been in education management, youth empowerment, leadership training for the past 12 years. And I've been very, very blessed to work with very, very good institutions.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that later. But I realized that one of the things that has enabled me, let me start from myself. One of the things that has enabled me to get to where I am, and I'm not saying that I'm that far, but to come to how far I have come, one of the skills is being able to get up every time I fall. So it's not for lack of failures, it's not for lack of rejection that you succeed. It's precisely because of how you react to those events. And so resilience is a big part for me, and for us as young people and even as adults. It actually, I would dare say, is one of the determinants of how your life can be. Why do I say that? You can be really super bright, and you know, we live in a country where the education system really emphasizes academics and grades.
The grades.
And the grades, yeah. And I mean, yeah, that's good. It's good to be bright. It should be. All of us should strive to do our very best. But once you leave school, and this was my discovery as well, I did well, I did very well in high school, university, throughout.
Precious blood, right?
I went to Precious Blood Reruta, and then got all these scholarships to go abroad. But when I started working, actually, is when I discovered there was something more that I needed. It was not about grades, it was not about my ability to take exams. And it was not just about how you relate with people. The more important aspect was, how do I deal with myself when things don't go the way I expected them to go? And the kind of economy that we are living in, the kind of world that we are living in, disappointments are inevitable. And your ability to rise above those issues is what will determine how far you can go. Yeah, and that's how I would define resilience. Resilience is your ability to recover from a setback. And I'll go further and say this. Most of the time we think of an elastic band. And so when you have an elastic band, and I wish I'd carried one, but when you have an elastic band, when you pull it, its elasticity allows it to come back to the original shape or the original form. Resilience is being able to do that, to bounce back to the original form, but to bounce back to an even better form. Yeah, I think that if you go through a setback or something that really shakes you, shakes your faith even, I think that when you recover, you don't recover back to the old Collins, you recover back to a higher, better, stronger, more mature, wiser Collins. So you're not just going back to the original form, you're going back to an even better form. Yes, beaten up, yes, with scars, but better, wiser and stronger.
Wow.
That's resilience to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a definition.
Yeah.
What a definition.
Yeah.
I told you she's loaded and we are just scratching the surface. We are here together. So, well, you've defined resilience, and you've told us all that, the ability to rise up, and you use the rubber thing and how elastic and it comes to form, but you say you need to come even to a better form.
Yeah.
But you know, somebody once said that the issue is not that you fall down, because definitely you fall down.
Yeah.
But the issue is when you fall down, make sure you pick up something when you fall down.
Yeah.
So I think basically that's what resilience is all about.
Yeah.
So when you fall down, please, when you leave that ground, come out with something. Even if you just pick the soil there, at least have some evidence that you fell, and it should be for the better.
Should be for the better.
So let me ask you, maybe from a personal angle,
Yeah.
have you ever faced this quote unquote falling down things?
Yeah.
Give us a story. you are this educated girl, educated lady who you have accomplished so much. You've worked with the UN, you've worked with ELF, you've been here and there, you've been to the US, you've been to several countries in Africa. So did you ever fall down, or yours has just been a smooth ride?
I have fallen down many times. Many times.
Just give us one.
I'll give you one. And just to correct, I haven't worked with the UN, but it sounds like you're prophesying something there, so I received it. I went through a training by UNFPA on gender-based violence in emergencies.
Yes.
But I mean, let me tell you, I think the most recent one that I can remember, and that really shook me. So I won't mention the organization, but I worked with a certain organization, and by the time I got that job, I had been handpicked. I had been headhunted, actually is the word. And so I left another job, which wasn't a bad job. I loved that job as well. But this one was going to challenge me. I was going to be in management. I was going to be doing exactly what I love, which is working with young people. And I gave my all to this job. I thought I gave my all. And one day in 2019, there's a lot of let me say strife. There's a lot of success in that job. There's a lot of joy as well, but there was also a lot of friction. Yeah, which upon reflection now I see part of it was maybe I wasn't as prepared for the role, because it was a senior role. Maybe my understanding of what we were trying to do wasn't completely aligned to what everybody was seeing. And that also happens, and we can come back to that, yeah? But in May of 2019, that job ended. Let me put it that way. And the way that it ended, I did not expect that. I think I was called for a meeting and was told, first there was talk of restructuring. And I think now when I hear restructuring, I fear. When I see any organization saying they're restructuring, you should be very afraid, because chances are some people will lose their jobs. I did not imagine for how hard I was working, for how much I had put my heart into it, to a point where it felt like there were 3 people in my marriage: myself, my husband, and a job. When you're giving your all. So to be called to the boardroom and to be explained to that the restructuring, one of the effects is that you're going to have to leave us. And I remember I had been, I'd gone through a lot of friction, let me put it that way, in that job, but in that moment, everything came crumbling down, and I cried in that room, and I said, how can that happen after I've done everything? I'm a believer. I have high levels of integrity, and I say that with all humility. I'd given my best. I've not, I felt I have not stolen any money from anybody. I've not stolen hours from my employer. I've gone over and above. And so on that day, and it was in May, I remember so clearly, eventually the people who had called me left me in the boardroom because I was inconsolable. I was now crying and whatever. I remember I had to leave the compound of the organization and just go, and I just drove, and I didn't know where I was going, and I was crying. And one of the things that was most difficult for me was that I had been talking so much about this job, so everybody and their mother out there knew this is the job that Elishiba is doing. This is a job that Elishiba seems to really be excelling at. She's passionate about it. And I also had felt that everything I had done, the scholarships, every other job I had done was leading up to this job. So for it to come crumbling down in that way, I felt very disappointed. I felt disappointed and a bit angry as well. Because during all those, the friction that I'm saying, I had been praying to God. And everyone tells you, God will fight your battles and da-da-da-da. And I'm just like, so how did you fight this battle, and why am I coming out?
You started questioning God.
The loser, yeah. But let me tell you, that one incident, and it happened as recently as 2019, is one of the reasons why I even founded the Classroom Outside. You know why? Because I realized that, thankfully, I was able to somehow keep it together. Like, yes, I fell apart in that moment, but you're a mother, you're a wife, you have other people still looking at you. And the months that followed, I spoke to a lot of people who told me, older people especially, and people who I consider very successful. Many of them were like, by the way, Elishiba, when I was 24, this and this happened. Right now you're seeing me as as a board member in this organization. Let me tell you, have a seat. How much time do you have? Let me tell you. Do you know, when my first job, I was just about to be promoted, and then this and this happened. Do you know that, so many stories from my aunts and uncles, from mentors and people that I admire, even from some of my professors in my master's program, because I was doing my master's program then. I remember my supervisor, actually, Professor Anjiku Kabira, when I told her what had happened, she gave me her own story, and she's someone I really respect, so successful, but explaining how she started her career in education. I thought, oh my God, Elishiba, like yours is nothing in terms of what everyone else has gone through. But more importantly, I was able to, a few months after that, I was able to, I guess, look for another job, and I got another job, and that's how I moved to another job. Let me not say where. But there are things that I was able to draw upon. I drew upon knowledge that I had before, knowledge of how God has done it before for me. All the opportunities I had had before, I had gotten scholarships, I had gotten nice job opportunities. I was like, it's the same God. It's the same God. He has not changed. So even in this moment, I knew there's something at work. Yeah.
Wow.
And that's what enabled me, equipped me to recover, not immediately, but quickly enough.
Okay.
Quickly enough.
All right.
Yeah.
Wow. What a story.
Yeah.
And I told you we're just scratching the surface. We have a few minutes before we go to the break. But before we go to the break, I want to ask Elishiba something.
Yeah.
You know, she's given us a story, how she lost the job and she managed to pick herself up, but not immediately. With time, it was a process. It was a process. And it all goes back to the same God who provided yesterday.
Yeah.
The same God who still take you through the following. The same God who made you succeed in your KCSE is the same God who can make you successful in your undergrad. The same God who made you succeed in the KCPE can still take you through the KCSE that you are about to face. So, all in all, it is God. So is this thing learned? Can we learn resilience, or is it something we possess, or I mean, is it a personality trait? How do we come to that level where we say we are now resilient? And just before you answer that question, maybe you just tuned in and you're wondering what's happening. This is Nextgen Warriors on Elevate TV, where we are advancing kingdom lifestyle. Remember to like our Facebook page, our YouTube page, Instagram and Twitter, all of them at Elevate TV Kenya. And the Lord will bless you. There are also numbers on your screen. Please get in touch with us. Call us, send us an SMS. I promise you, we will get back to you. We respond to your prayer requests, and every other request and every other concern will be addressed. So do we learn it? Resilience.
We do. Resilience can be taught. Resilience can be learned and should be learned. And like many things, again, there's an assumption that you just become courageous, you just become a hopeful person. But in actual fact, you have to learn how to be those things. There are a few things, yes, as human beings, I guess, like eating, nobody teaches you how to do. Yeah, breathing, those are innate things that we're born with them. But just like we are taught how to walk, we are taught how to let go of that chair that you're holding, so that you fall and then you're told, no, you can keep going. Resilience can be learned. And not only resilience, because the other part or aspect of resilience is hope. Hope, because what makes you resilient is the hope for something better, is the hope that there'll be another day, another chance to fight. Yeah, and hope also can be learned. Yeah, in fact, I say that it is such a big determinant of our quality of life that we should not leave it to chance. We have to actively learn it. The same way, you know, and hope is actually a habit. And even I have a session that we run, a course that we run called Hope as a Habit. And you know, a habit is something that you learn, you pick up, you practice it until it becomes something in your subconscious. Yeah. So like if you're trying to eat healthy, for example, you have to keep practicing it for a while. If you're trying to have a certain lifestyle, disciplined lifestyle, it becomes a habit because you do it repeatedly. So the same thing goes for hope and resilience. And how do you learn that? First of all, it's by something like this, what we're doing now here. We're talking about it. Exposing yourself to conversations that talk about resilience and hope, so that you know what is it, why is it important, how do I gain it. Yeah, so you can learn it through such conversations. And I thank God that there are so many positive programs nowadays, you know, out there. Of course, there are a lot of confusing programs as well out there, but in equal measure, there's a lot of good programming, there's a lot of positive sources of information. You can learn about resilience, learn about people's stories. Yeah, taking time to learn about people's stories is another way. Stories are such a powerful way of learning, and then you start to put yourself in that person's story. You just shared Colonel Sanders' story, and it's so interesting because on my way here, that was one of the examples I had. It's so interesting, actually. And as you started,
you were in the spirit.
Imagine, it was actually one of the examples, because Colonel Sanders failed so many times. And eventually at the age of 88 started KFC, like you said. Another example is J.K. Rowling, the author of the Harry Potter series. Again, her script was rejected so many times, and eventually, when she, became successful, it was just like, oh my God, where is she coming from? And there's so many other people who've gone through adversity. Oprah Winfrey, was told you don't have a face for TV, you don't have the look, whatever the look is, and look at her now. Look at how far she's gone. But it's that ability to say, okay, here's a setback, I'm going to try again. You learn, yes, you learn through other people's stories, but you also have to learn hope and resilience by drawing on your own story. What happened before? Think about, what did I do that helped me to recover? And then do that thing again. And then, because when each situation comes, it has a different challenge. Ask yourself now, what's the extra thing I need to do? And you don't have to know it yourself. You can ask others as well. You can ask God.
Yeah.
You can ask your counselor. You can ask your parents. You can ask your pastor. And even when I went through what I went through, I sought help from the other people who have gone through life more than I have. Yeah, and some were younger than me too. It doesn't have to be older. So seeking knowledge, seeking information, seeking support from those around us, from our own story, and from God.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you have a story. Look back at your story.
Yeah.
There are days you've fallen and you've stood up. There are things you've done and you've learned lessons. Draw from them.
Exactly.
You don't always have to be like, who do I run to? Sometimes run to yourself. Have that personal meeting with yourself. Self-introspection is very important when it comes to resilience. That's how you learn it. But if that's not enough, as Elishiba puts it, talk to that person. It can be a neighbor, a pastor, your brother, your sister, your mother, your father. The list is endless. We cannot finish the list here. But please, you have to get up when you fall down.
Yeah.
Don't stay too long down, because others are moving on. Life is a competition. Everybody has a place and a role to play. You are that cast. Please play your role. It is resilience time. Now, we can learn resilience. We can draw lessons from others.
Yeah.
But do we have, like, there's this viewing this channel, for example, maybe reading books, maybe watching a video. But do we have like classrooms or courses like I'm studying resilience, masters in resilience, something of the sort. Do you have such like stuff, or do you have programs that people can maybe join? Because you see, right now with the lockdown, there are no jobs. The COVID has really turned things upside down.
Yes.
Money is hard to come by.
Yes.
Parents are not doing enough, because even them, they have so much to attend to. Schools are closed. Maybe you can't go to school to keep yourself busy. So maybe somebody's watching us right now and they're becoming hopeless. Do you have programs? Do you have schools? Do you have maybe courses or something of the sort on matters of resilience? In just like 3 minutes before we go forward.
So first of all, we don't have enough. Let me just say that. We don't have enough programs that teach resilience. We don't have enough institutions. But I would say, first of all, any course or program that teaches leadership, first of all, because leadership is the new in thing also, that everybody's going for leadership training, and that's amazing. Any leadership training will have an element of resilience. They might not call it that, but they'll be talking to you about what do you do when your team doesn't agree with you. What do you do when what you had put in your strategy is doesn't come to life. And then any youth program also, they might not call it resilience. It'll have different names, but empowerment, yeah. But most youth programs, especially if it's a church youth program, the rites of passage programs, not the ones that, especially those who finish like class 8 now. I know many of them will go through those trainings of rites of passage, where they are now being taught how to become women and men. There'll also be, a lot of them will have an element of resilience. In Kenya, we say kukaa ngumu, unafundishwa kukaa ngumu, unajua? But it's not about kukaa ngumu, unafundishwa that life is hard and that you'll have at some point to draw upon something that's bigger than yourself to move to the next step. I would also say a lot of the the channels, and for me, I follow a lot of the preachers and the churches. I follow, even on social media, because again, as young people, you're on social media a lot. If you're going to be scrolling up on your phone, if you're going to be watching that, if you're going to be listening to radio, find those channels that are Christian channels or motivational type of channels. I can assure you, if I can spend 30 minutes listening to something completely useless, not useless, but that won't add too much value, then let me spend those 30 minutes listening to something that will actually build me.
Wow.
Yes.
Hold that thought right there. I know you're about to say something.
No, it's okay.
But we need to take a water break.
Focus on youth and the gospel.
What is a career path? How does it come about?
It's a journey that you take in discovering yourself as you rise at the different levels of the career path that you may be in.
Worship moments, worship conversations.
Oh God Almighty, Lord of glory.
Where did this rift come from between artists and church?
So me, I believe in church so much that whenever something happens in church that haiwezi kuwa ina profit mwanamuziki, inakuwa very sad.
Top African and international tunes.
What can't you do, Jesus? Let's go!
Elevate TV, advancing kingdom lifestyle.
Yeah, so welcome back to the second bit of the show. This is Nextgen Warriors, a program that is geared towards ensuring that the young people grow holistically through all aspects of life and overcome the various challenges they're facing. In essence, we just want to draw you towards the Christ-like life and to help you navigate the issues of life as young people. That is basically our core mandate. We have nothing else. That is what we can give you, to give you the hope and the idea that you can rise when you fall as a young person. It's not all gloom. There is hope. There's light at the end of the tunnel, as they always say. So today we are talking about resilience, and I'm still here with the lovely Elishiba Msengeti. And just before the break, she was just talking about on the institutions and what have you that can help you develop resilience. But on this bit of the show, I want us now to go to the Bible and maybe draw some Christian examples of people who had these issues, the word, maybe they fell, maybe they had problems, but they rose up again. So like, biblically speaking, now we are getting quote-unquote theology. So biblically speaking, do you have like characters or individuals whom we can pinpoint and say, so-and-so went through this and rose up and even became better? And maybe here we can give you even 3, 4, 5 verses. Feel free.
Yeah. The Bible is full of people who went through challenges and overcame them. And in fact, that's why the Bible is such a great teacher, because it doesn't show us that life is all rosy. I find a lot of consolation myself and comfort from reading Bible stories. The first example that comes to mind, of course, is Job. Yeah, and Job went through. He was very wealthy. He had every reason to be proud and arrogant. And then suddenly, he lost everything. He became sick, lost his family, lost his wealth, and remained faithful to God. Yeah, and I think that's one of the things about resilience is keeping your eye on the person and who is our creator. You keep your eye there, keep your eyes on that, and you keep your focus there, because you know he has your best interests at heart. So Job is a very great example, and eventually, you know, God restored him. And I like that the aspect of restoration. I think Psalms 126 talks about that no, God is a God of restoration. No matter your tears, no matter the pain, no matter the grief and loss that you go through, that God not only restores, he completely heals you. He not only heals, he completely restores you, actually, is the word, yeah? And that's what he does for whatever you go through. And it might not be immediate, but you have to keep the faith. For Job, it would have been so easy to give up and say, watu wananicheka, you know, people are looking down at me, people are now ridiculing me. The other example I think about is Joseph. Yeah.
Before we go to Joseph,
okay,
maybe we need to cement a few points on Job.
Sure.
See, I know majority of you have heard the story of Job. He suffered some boils, he suffered some funny diseases, he lost his herd of cattle and what have you. Even the wife told him, now this is your God. You have to mock this God. The children wondered, what's wrong with daddy now? Sasa wewe nini rada ni gani? But he kept on the faith. I mean, you can imagine that situation. Budako alikuwa preso, alikuwa like everything. Then all of a sudden, ana chochote. Like serious. Yeah, I mean, ana chochote. From hero to zero. And then he still says, I still have faith in that God. You've lost nothing yet, my friend. I mean, you're at maybe 25. Yeah. You just lost your first job and you're giving up. No. Read the story of Job. This guy had everything. I mean, by modern standards, he was a wealthy man. And perhaps maybe angekuwa maybe governor of a certain county or maybe a president and what have you. But despite that, he kept the faith. And God, as Elisha puts it, restored. Completely restored everything. So perhaps what you're lacking is just faith. So, with resilience, there has to be faith. That's the point. Now, she was giving us a second character in the person of Joseph.
Joseph.
Yes.
And just like you've mentioned, you know, Job kept the faith. Joseph was he was hated by his brothers. He was sold. And that was the highest form of betrayal. I'd say, if my brother's dead, I have two brothers and I love them to death. If they dare sell me, I can't imagine. Anyway, I don't think they would. It's too late now. We're all adults. But Joseph was sold away, taken to a foreign land. There he was tempted by Potiphar's wife, who then falsely accuses him. He's thrown into prison. You know, completely unfair. And you know, that's the other thing. I know that sometimes things happen and you're just thinking, this is so unfair. You know, I don't deserve this. You look around you and you see everybody else seems to be doing okay. And there's that element, you know, that we think life should be fair, and really life is not, yeah? And so Joseph goes through all of that. But somehow, in every situation that he found himself in, he did his best. When he was working in the Potiphar's house, he did his best. When he was sent to prison, he was the best prisoner. Then he at some point now, God gave him the grace to be able to interpret the dreams, and that's what now propelled him to fame and to a higher position. And then imagine the irony of his brothers now having to come to Egypt because there's drought, and famine in their land, and think about, I think what amazes me is how Joseph forgave. He forgave. Because again, we're not of this world. You also should not sometimes stoop to this level. We are children of a higher God. We submit to higher ideals. And so it's very tempting, especially in the event where you've been betrayed, you've been let down. It's very tempting to want to revenge, you know. And I like this quote that forgiveness is setting the prisoner free, and realizing that the prisoner was you. Yeah. And that's what Joseph did, forgave and was able to, was restored fully, right? Became, a very high government official, a senior government official. That story for me has many, many lessons, but one of them is just when I think of the fact that he was such a good person and yet he went through all of that. When we go through things, sometimes we think, is it because I sinned? Is it because I did not serve God? And that's not the reason. That's not how God operates. God is not a contractual God that you do this so that, things happen for a reason, to teach us something, to make us stronger. And Joseph forgave. The last example I'll give is the woman with the issue, which is called the blood issue in the New Testament, who suffered the bleeding problem for 12 years. 12 years. 12 years is a long time, especially for the young people watching. 12 years might be half your age, or more than half your age. And imagine going through a problem every time. Umeenda kwa madaktari wapi, they don't see the, and it's an embarrassing problem. She did not relent. She kept, seeking help. And one day, she just touched the hem of Jesus and was healed. Her faith healed her. Why do I say this? It's never time for you to give up until it's the very end. Yeah, you cannot give up until it's the very end. And when it's the very end, trust me, you'll know. How will you know? You'll die. You'll be dead. So that's when the end comes. Before you die, it's not the end. It's not the end. It's not the end. And in fact, I always ask, so if you don't want to be resilient, what's the alternative? What's the alternative? The alternative is to give up, and then what? So you give up, and then what? Because then your life and your purpose in life, will never be served. So in fact, I would say hope is almost not an option. You have to have hope. You have to be resilient. And the question now is more of, how do I learn how to be resilient, how to be hopeful, not whether I should or not. The option, the alternative, there's no alternative. There's no, the minute you give up, you stop living. You stop living. Yeah.
So you're still alive and not dead. So there's no option. You must be resilient.
Just keep going.
Keep going.
Keep going.
You must keep hope alive.
Yeah.
There's no alternative. So if you give up, what next? So what? That's the question. So what? It's not a matter of should I be resilient. It's a matter of how can I be resilient. And remember, we've learned a new quote today. So maybe you're wondering which quote was that. Forgiveness is letting the prisoner free. Yeah. And the prisoner is you.
Yeah, discovering the prisoner was you.
Yeah. So you discover the prisoner is you. Yeah. Look at the life of Joseph, as Elishiba has put it. Life was very unfair to him. I have served God. And somebody out here is now saying, I've been in the praise and worship team. I give my tithe. I go to church on time. I have never been late. I dress modestly. I do everything right. But still, mimi ndio kitu inaniangukia mimi. Mpaka you are asking yourself, ama mimi si mimi. But the reality of the matter is, some of these things happen for a reason. Yeah. Maybe it's because of that disappointment where your elevation will come from. You'll be elevated because of it. You'll be promoted because of that. Maybe you had to be fired from that job to get a better job. Maybe that young man has to reject you to get a better husband. Maybe that young girl had to reject you to get a better wife. Just maybe. Why don't you think of that? Why are you stuck there? You need to move on. You have to be resilient. There is no option. And that is what we will continue saying even to the end of this show. There is no option. So if you are just joining us, or if you are already here and you're wondering how can you follow us, please remember our social media handles are Elevate TV Kenya on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And when you go to that YouTube channel, please subscribe and click on that button so that whenever anything comes up, you get that reminder. Don't forget to subscribe, and the Lord will bless you. Elishiba, coming back to you, we have talked of the three characters: the woman with the issue of blood, Joseph, and Job. And these are Bible characters. what is the place of prayer? What is the place of maybe reading the word? What is the place of fasting? Or do they have a place in resilience? Do they have a place in building our hope and our resilience? These three things, do they have a place, like prayer, fasting, maybe reading the word? Do they have a place?
They do. First of all, I want to share maybe from my own childhood when I was growing up. My dad died when we were very young, when I was 5 years old actually, and my brothers who I've mentioned were 3 years old and 7 months old. So my mom was very young, and I know that the one thing that kept her going and kept us going was her faith in God. She went through many things, including also for her at some point she had to change jobs. Something unfair happened, let me just say that, but she was able to rise again and give us a very, very decent and good upbringing because of her faith in God. And we used to pray, we used to kneel kabisa ile unapiga magoti. You know, nowadays I see people are so lazy to kneel. Yeah, and it's like, for how much God has done for you, you can surely go on your knees unless you have a knee problem. We used to kneel na tunaomba. And when I left home, when I went to high school, I went to boarding high school, I would go to the chapel. I went to Precious Blood, like you've mentioned, Riruta. It's a Catholic school, and I had a personal relationship with God. So I would have duty between 5 and 5:30 p.m. I would finish my duty by 5:15, so that I have 15 minutes to go to the chapel. I used to go daily, Monday to Friday, actually Monday to Saturday. And why do I share that? Sometimes I would go to the chapel and I have no idea what to tell God, but I just want to sit in your presence. You know, I'm just here to sit in your presence. Sometimes the nuns, the sisters would have books on the pews, and I would read the books, the books that were in the church. What I realized is that those hours, many hours spent in God's presence, were building something in me. And let me tell you, that incident I told you in 2019, when it happened, I drew on some of the readings that I had read back in high school. I finished high school in 2002. That's a long time ago. Yeah. The build reservoirs for yourself. I call it reservoirs. Reservoirs of faith, reservoirs of God knowledge. Okay, you don't have to wait until you have a problem for you to read God's word, for you to equip yourself with God's word. Do it even when things are okay. Do it especially when things are okay. Because when things are not okay, you might not even be in a state of mind to listen, to hear, to even hear God's voice, because the pain can be deafening. You know, it can be, you can be so sad and downcast that you don't even have the room for God to touch you. So one of one of the pieces of advice I can give is that, you know, pray, read the word of God, fast, do all of that consistently, daily, whether things are going well or not. Whether things are going well or not. You cannot buy an umbrella when it's raining. You need to have the umbrella before it starts raining.
Be prepared.
Yeah? You have to be prepared. If you've not been training yourself how to run, the day that a lion imetokea inakufukuza, or a cheetah or whatever it is, you are not going to start learning how to run there. You need to have been practicing how to run. So equipping ourselves, I call it reservoirs, and build those reservoirs from a young age. I'm talking about high school when I was 14 up to 18, yeah? This reservoir, I guess, came to now be used when I was in my 30s, yeah? Reservoir ni kama vile tunaweka maji kwa tank. Unaona? For a day when there'll be no water. Huwezi anza kuchota maji siku ile maji hayako. You do it when there's water. So for the young people, I'll say, these programs that I'm saying, listen to these programs, get this wisdom from people. Even listen to the stories of the relatives and whoever is around you. Even when nothing is wrong, ask them about their life. Seek that knowledge from God. Read the Bible. I had verses, you know, for me that would come at the time when I'm at my lowest. These verses would come because they have been there. They are stored somewhere at the back of my of my mind. So make it a habit. We used to read Daily Bread with my mom. I know you know Daily Bread. You know that book, the devotional? But it's like a Bible study book. So we used to read with my mom from when I was in class 3. Yeah, from when I was in class 3 up to when I left my mother's home to go get married. We used to read. Even when I went to the US, every time I'd come home for the summer holidays, asubuhi before my mom goes to work, we would read Daily Bread with her. Do you know those stories from Daily Bread? Those stories from the Bible would come into play when I was far away from home where my mother is not there and I have to be strong enough for myself. There's nobody there to maybe encourage you or whatever, and that happens when you're in a foreign country. But I built those reservoirs before. So for the young people, ni vizuri kumjua Mungu when you are young, in the days of your youth. Because again, you have no idea what kind of upheaval, what kind of mapigo yanakungojea uko mbele. But imagine when you are so solid in your faith, when you've learned to fast. You know, when you fast, you draw close to God because now you have not only the hunger hii ya njaa ya tumbo kunguruma, but you also have spiritual hunger. Yeah, one of the sentences I love from the Bible is when Jesus was dying, and we've just come from Easter. You know the 7 statements that Jesus made, in that moment before he died. One of the 7 is I thirst. One of the 7 is I thirst. And let me tell you, if you can find a way to keep thirsting for God, keep thirsting for God. Fasting is one way that helps you to thirst for God. That you say to God every morning, Father, I thirst. Yeah? Yesu in that moment was thirsting for water, which of course they gave him something bitter, not water. But that statement is powerful.
Wow.
Yeah? And you'll use it, you'll need it, you'll need the nourishment that you're getting, you'll need it later. Easy squeezy tuko na simu. If you have bundles, you just Google. Anytime, by the way, if I'm feeling low, I Google and I'm like, verses for when I am feeling confused. Verses for when I am feeling bitter. Do you know, it's so funny? You get them. The Bible has every answer.
Wow.
Yeah.
The Bible has every answer.
Yeah.
Find a way to thirst, always. Now, some of the people in the studio are asking me that I can't leave this set without asking you this question.
Yeah.
You told us that maybe your dad died at
when I was 5 years old.
Just 5 years.
Yeah.
And now perhaps, for lack of a better word, you are raised by a single mother from that point.
Yes.
But you've overcome so many. So in just like in summary, I know there's so many details, but in summary, just give us that journey and the resilience bit. We talked about an incident, but give us that journey from down somewhere in, I want to say in Pokot or in Taita somewhere, from Taita to the US, to Loreto, to Wellesley. I mean, how has that resilience journey been? Now just give us that journey.
In summary.
Yes.
In summary.
Like 2-3 minutes.
Okay.
Yes.
I will summarize it this way. So, I mean, my dad died in a road accident on Nairobi-Mombasa Road. So Taita might be correct because it was in Manyani. But we were raised and we lived in Nairobi. We grew up in Nairobi. And my mom is a nurse, retired nurse now, and she was working in Nairobi. I'll say, so one I've already mentioned is the prayer. My mom was very prayerful. She was a member of the small Christian communities. We read the Daily Bread, like I said. It was not an option. And going to church was not an option. Like many Kenyan homes, and it's good. It's very good. And I'm trying now to raise my children the same way. One of the other things that I knew very early on is that if you work hard, you give God something to work with. It's so interesting. And I know many people work hard and don't get the reward. I was very blessed that I worked hard. I went to Muthaiga Primary School, which was a city council school. I know people here Muthaiga, I think it's wealthy, but it was a city council school, an amazing school, though I loved it. Then I was very blessed to be called to Precious Blood Ruta, which was my dream school. While there, I worked very hard again, but all of us did. and then got the scholarship to the United World Colleges, which are called UWCs. It's an international school, and I went to the US for that, and after that got another scholarship, again through hard work and I think God's grace, to go to Wellesley College, which is where I did my undergrad. So that journey, I think there were for me there were reminders from God every time of his faithfulness, that if as a child, you see, no matter when you're young, you don't have much to offer. All I can offer is my hard work. All I can offer is my discipline. While I was doing that, I taught Sunday school. I would volunteer. There was a home, Mother Teresa home near where we lived. I would volunteer there. So you also do your part. So you're in a fellowship with God. I would say that for me, honestly, without a shadow of a doubt, that is what anchored me and led me to all those opportunities. And I also knew that, you know, I'm privileged to get those opportunities. So wherever I got to it, I did my very, very best as my thanksgiving to God. Remember the I don't know if it was Adam's children were called who and who. One gave not the very good offering, and the other one gave very good.
You're talking about Esau?
Esau and no. Okay, we'll remember. In any case,
Abel and Cain.
Abel and Cain. Cain and Abel. How can we forget? Yeah, Cain and Abel. Giving God the best offering from your work. That's what I would say. That has been my journey. So it's been hard work, and it's also been favor, I would say, and sio kuchezea maisha. So if I'm given a scholarship, my undergrad, the first year, I was on the dean's list because I was not about to joke with this opportunity that I've been given, knowing how many Kenyans, first of all, would have loved to be here and they are not. Yeah. When I came back home, I started by working in South Africa, African Leadership Academy. Again, you give your best. It might not always be that the outcome is amazing or that it's always appreciated or that you get the award for the best or whatever. But if at every point you are doing your best and your conscience is, is clear in that there's nothing left. You know, we're supposed to die empty. Miles Monroe talks about that, yeah? That we shouldn't enrich the graveyard, that let's die empty. And that for me has been one of my driving forces. I do my best. If Collins has invited me to this interview, I should not come and waste Collins's time and the time of the viewers. Yeah, I need to give my best. And in that way, wherever you are, young people, as you're watching me, wherever you are, bloom where you are planted. Yeah, bloom where you are planted. God will do the rest. It might not be immediately. It might not be in the fashion that you want it to be, yeah. It might not be in the fashion that you're seeing everybody else being blessed, but just know that He is faithful and He's doing for you what is right for you. He has a plan for you, and that keeps me resilient. That keeps me resilient.
Wow.
Yeah.
So bloom where you have been grown. Just do your best.
Yeah.
Give God something to work with. I mean, He has blessed you with all these blessings upon your life. Just make sure that you bloom where you are. And in that, by so doing, I mean, you will find yourself being resilient. And you find God blessing you and you succeed. The people you see succeeding, they have had to sacrifice a lot. They have had to give it all. Sometimes they go through some of the hard things in life. Why they just keep on going, just keep on going. So you too can keep on going. It is within you. Just find it. Now, I know I have like 2 minutes to end the show. So I want you to look at this camera. This is camera 3, where the wonderful Peter is. Peter, you're doing a good job, and God bless you. Yeah, so look at Peter and just talk to that young person, that young girl, that young boy, that young man, that young lady watching us right now. Just give them something to go home with. If they missed anything, give them something to go home with on matters resilience in like just 2 minutes before we call it a day.
Okay. So let me say, first, to encourage you, whatever you are going through. Could be that you've just gotten your results, KCP, you've just gotten your KCSE, you just finished, or you've been looking for a job for a long time, or you've just lost your job, or your business is not going well, or you've had sickness in the family, whatever it is. And there's so many things that are going on in our lives right now. I want to encourage you to, first of all, draw upon the faithfulness of God that has been there in your life from before, the faithfulness of God even to other people in the Bible, other people who are alive. He's the same God yesterday, today, and tomorrow. The other thing I want to encourage is with the verse from Isaiah 26 verse 23, that he will keep in steadfast hope those who believe in him. Keep your faith, keep your eyes on God. He's got you, he loves you, he has plans to make you prosper. Jeremiah 29 verse 11. And in fact, we always skip that last part, that you say God has plans to make me prosper, to give me a good future. The next part says, if you will call upon me. Call upon God, call upon his promises. You are his child. And lastly, think about, what do I still have to be grateful for? You'll discover that you still have a lot to be grateful for. It may feel like you've lost everything. It may feel like everything is dark. But if you dig deep enough, there's something to still be grateful for. And there's something that you still have to offer this world. There's something that the world still has to offer you. So may God bless you. May God elevate you. And know that you are God's child. He loves you. He knows you. And he has amazing plans for you.
Awesome. Wow. I will add nothing to that. I mean, she has said it all. If I add, I will dilute. But I want you to remain concentrated at that level. So thank you so much for watching us this wonderful Saturday morning. Make sure to catch us on the same channel, same time next week on Saturday. God bless you.